Hey, it's me, Bepler, and I'm just gonna do it because if I don't do it and stay here long enough, eventually nobody's gonna know. So I'm just gonna say it. Blender is something you can use. Here's how to get it. Blender. Right here, the first link you're gonna want to go to. Whether you have a Mac or PC, you can get it. Go to here. Gonna do a little download action. Select whichever you have. I use 64-bit for Windows. They got the Mac. They got the Linux. They got the click that one. Alright, you've installed, you've launched the Blender, you see this pop-up, you actually might have a newer version. Click right there on the picture and it'll go away. If you want to open files, there was a spot for that just a minute ago. Now this is how every Blender file starts. You get a camera, a light, and a box. How am I moving the camera? Use the middle mouse button, the scroll wheel, click it, drag it around. If you want to move your view left and right, you hold shift and you use the same button. There you go. If you want to zoom in, you just scroll up and down, or if you want to do fine-tune zooming, you click and drag with the middle mouse button while holding the control key. Selection is with the right mouse button. You click with the right mouse and you're done. If you click and drag, you can move stuff and then let go with the left clicker, otherwise it'll be stuck on your cursor if you were clicking and dragging with the right. You left click it, gentlemen and ladies. Generally speaking, as of recently, people have started to use cycles a lot more than they use the Blender render. This is the way that the program processes your final image when you try and get it out of Blender. So usually just switch it over to cycles at the top here, and then on this render bar, you're going to go to GPU, not CPU. That's for the device. If it's tabbed down like that, just tab it open, bam. And if you don't have that, you're going to have to do Control-Alt-U, alright? Go over to your system, gonna want to scroll down right here, change the computing device from none to CUDA, and select your graphics card. This just uses the faster part of your computer to show you the final product right here. So Blender is modular just like Flash. You have lots of windows all over the place. It's pretty much like a lot of other programs. You got these dragging and sliding bars. The window is defined by the little box at the bottom left corner. So here is the timeline window. If you wanted to change what was down here, it's unlike Flash in the way that you can just alter whatever window is whatever by selecting this button and changing it. In fact, this is the 3D window, but if I wanted the 3D window down here as well, I could go ahead and just switch it to it, and now I got a whole nother angle of the exact same thing. Bam. But then if I want it to be a timeline again, boom. It's just ready to go, and now you're scrubbing through. Over on the side here, usually it puts the, whatever this one is called, the properties. Yeah, it actually is called properties. And you got this thing. If you're having trouble seeing all the buttons in your properties, you can either make the window wider to look at them all, or in any menu, like at the top here, you can middle mouse click and drag, and it'll scroll through, just like that. And then you can select whatever you need. If you're having trouble seeing stuff, it sometimes might happen like down here. If you're looking for these, just middle mouse click and drag, bam. Okay, how do you split views? Top right corner of any window, you got these 3 little bars. Careful with them, you don't want to make too many windows, but if you click, left click, drag it out, you got a whole new window duplicate of what you were just on that you can then change to anything you need, just like that. And if you want to get rid of a unsplit window, click the same box, push it away. Use left click, drag it out. You can crush whichever one you drag in the direction of. In the 3D window, if you want to get rid of your tools or properties, which is this one, you just hit T or N on your keyboard. This is T and this is N to hide those. Easy peasy. Only in the 3D window. It's the only one that has those like that. If your camera's ever getting all wacky and you're trying to focus on something but it's not getting in the center, just select what you want to be focused on. That's right click and then you got it. Hit the decimal key on your number pad and it'll slam right down into it, and then you're focused on it. It puts your camera's origin on whatever was selected. Blender is a lot like Flash in that it uses hierarchies. So imagine this cube is a symbol. In Blender they're called objects. Here's the object panel over in this properties window. You can go into an object by hitting tab while it is selected, just like that. You'll notice down here in your 3D Windows options, it changes from object mode to edit mode. Also, you can't do 3D window stuff, altercations, unless you have the cursor over it. So if I try and hit tab out here, nothing happens because I'm hovering over the timeline right now. But if I start to hover over 3D, the focus will shift and you can do stuff to it. So inside of an object, in tab edit mode, just like that, you have all the options to edit the vertices, the vertexes, and the faces, all that jazz. Like I could click this one right now and then move it around. Okay, let's get into how you change stuff. So you've gone inside of an object, you're in edit mode now. If you hit Control Tab, it's going to bring up a little window here. That's Control Tab, and it'll change what part of the thing that you are selecting. It's either vertices, edges, or faces. So your view of it will change ever so slightly when you switch between these three, and you're stuck on one once you have it. And down here you can quickly tab between them, but I like using Control Tab and then just grabbing it. Get used to cursor windows popping up right where your mouse is whenever you do a hotkey, because it's going to happen a lot, like this or this. So you hit Control Tab, go to Faces, right click it to select it. You can move them on axes by using these sliders, or you can just move them in general by selecting them and then hitting G, and you've got it, and then you left click to let go, or I believe, don't hit G again, no, that's a whole other thing, don't get into that. So G will move it, okay? S, once it's selected, will scale it along its origin. Rotate is R, and you can do that to your heart's content. Then you got extruding, so if you have a face selected or an edge, you can hit E and it'll automatically extrude it perpendicular to its axis, and if you left click, it'll make the extrusion permanent. E again, E again, E again, all that. Well, E left click, just like that. If you want to select multiple faces, you just right click it, hold shift, right click another one, just like that. E, extrude it. You want to maybe scale multiples? Oh, do it up. Just use S, just like that. You want to scale the whole thing? Well, deselect those. You use the A key to select all and deselect all, just like this. Ready? Ready? A for all. And then you can scale just like that. Alright, let's talk about axis-specific modifications. I just used A to deselect everything. Right-click it. So you want to move it every direction except up and down, as in except this one. So if you hit G, you're moving this face now, but you can do specific stuff, like just move it on the x-axis or y-axis. So let me hit G and then X. Watch what happens. I'm moving my mouse in a circle just like before, but it's only going along one. Here's GZ, here's GY, just like that. So if you want to alter that, you can go G Shift Z, and it'll move on both the X and the Y, but you can't move it on the Z axis when you're doing this, because you hit Shift Z. You can do the same for like Shift X, and it'll move on the Z and the Y. Y is green, X is red, Z is blue. Memorize that. Here's a little help if you need it. Same axis stuff goes for rotations. Here's R, X, just like that. Here's R with nothing on it. See how it's rotating perpendicular to the camera's view? Here's RZ, sorry, right there. So, you know, pretty helpful stuff. If you want to do specific intervals, like 45 degrees, you can go R, and then if you wanted to do 45 on the Z-axis, you would press Z next, and then you would press 45 on your number pad, and then just click, and it'll be locked into a 45-degree change. There you go. Undo is Control-Z as per usual. Redo is Control-Shift-Z, not Control-Y. That is a whole other thing, so just leave that alone. There you are. You can enter specific scale values, so if I hit S2, it'll double its size, and if I started to type more, like 20, it'll multiply its size by 20, but I don't want that, so you can do S.5, there you go, or you can just scale it by hand, you know, all that stuff. Oh, there's also snapping in Blender. At the bottom here, if you don't want snapping on, hit the magnet. So this will stop happening. See the little clicks it does? Yeah, nobody wants that. If you want it on when snapping is not on, you hold Control with your other hand while you scale. This is Control on, and this is it off. Scaling can also be done on certain axes as well. Let me rotate this back so you can see it in effect. Actually, this is getting kind of crazy. It's off everything. Let me just hit tab to leave it. Get rid of this by hitting X and then clicking the delete button. And then I'm going to make a new cube. I don't want to get into new cubes, but you're going to learn right now. If you want to make a new thing, you go Shift A. This is Shift A. Alright, it works everywhere. Even if you're inside of another shape, you can still use Shift A to make stuff. Okay, so this cube, say I wanted to scale it just on the X-axis. That's S, and then X, and then you move your cursor, and you're doing it, left click. So you wanted to do it on the Y-axis and the Z-axis, you can go Scale Y, Z. Not that, I'm sorry. You can go Scale Shift X. Bam. Now the X dimension will stay the same while the Y and the Z change. Good going. You can do that focus shifting thing too if you're working on a big like complex thing and you just need to focus on one little origin of it. Like go in here, you're like, oh, I can't quite get my camera to focus on the right part of it. Just click what you want to be working on, hit the decimal key, and it'll jump right into it. This is even if you're in edit mode. Back out in object mode now, you can, as I said before, hit Shift A to create stuff. You have meshes. This is pretty much what you're going to be using if you're doing basic shapes like modeling and things. When you make a thing, like a cylinder here, it'll immediately prompt you with the options down here in the tools menu. If you don't have that, just hit T, it'll come back. You can add vertices to your thing. See how the vertice count is increasing. You can change the radius, all that jazz. Only once you make it though. Once you start to move it around and make changes to it, those immediate properties are gone, so do it right once you get it on the screen. If you hit Shift A, down below meshes, which just means objects, there are curves. These are what you use to do modifications to stuff, or like make a camera move along a curved path. You probably don't need it when you're starting out. Don't worry about surface stuff or metaball or okay, you might need text, but just look up a text tutorial if that's what you really want to do. All of this stuff is not for beginners. You may need a camera, so if you want to make a new camera, like you deleted yours, you went, oh no, it's gone, you go camera. You have to have a camera to export your shot because it has to be viewed from somewhere. Let's go on to cameras. So say you have a camera made right here. You went Shift A camera and then you brought it on. How do you go into that camera and see what it's looking at? Oh no, just right click it, hit 0 on your number pad. You're in. How do you look around now with your camera? Shift F. However, don't worry about what I just said, however. You hit Shift F. There. Now you're looking around. You're inside the camera. And if you want to see what is happening outside, you can split your view right here, like with this thing, just like you can in the top right corner. Whoa, just undo. Go to 3D view and look at it. Now, oh look, you can see yourself looking around right there just by moving the view a little bit. Okay, if you want to make your camera wider, you go over to camera and increase or decrease the focal length, which will increase the field of view. There you are with a wide angle. If you want to zoom in, obviously do the opposite. Done. Oh, not done. If you want to move your camera around, hit G while it's selected. If you just hit G like this, nothing will happen, so select the outside frame of it, like right-clicking it, and then G, you can move it to your heart's content. If you need to get out of the camera view, just go like you're going to rotate. That's a middle mouse click and then rotate it up. And then I want to talk about views right now. Orthographic view is a thing in Blender. Here, let me close this window. Let me just drag it down with those 3 little lines. So when you're in this outside view like this, you know, just your basic, you can change the field of view over here in the N menu. That's N on your keyboard by doing this, and it'll give you a bit wider, you know, just like with a camera. Just different perspectives. If you want to go to orthographic view, you hit 5 on the number pad, and it'll do this sort of infinite distance away, zoomed in kind of look. or it's like that. You'll understand. 5 will get you back out of that into perspective mode. You can see it up in the top left. If you want to view from just the sides, it's 1, 3, or 7. And if you want to do that from the opposite sides, it's Control 1, Control 3, or Control 7 to get like the underneath view instead of the top view, what have you. Good. Done. If you ever need to change these views, I just went into 1 and then I hit 5 for orthographic. If you need to change these views by just a little bit, you can use 6, 4, 2, and 8. 9 does nothing for the view. So that's all the stuff you need to know for that. If you're ever like lined up for the perfect shot, like this is exactly where you want the camera to be, but you don't want to have to move the camera to this position, just select the camera and hit Control Alt 0. And the camera will instantly snap to where your view just was, and it'll put you in camera view. There you go. When you're in the Shift F mode where you're looking around, you can use W, A, S, and D to move yourself all around the world. If you want to walk around in your scene, I believe it's G. Yeah, it'll create like false gravity and false boundaries off your stuff. If you just need to move the camera around by acting like you're walking around, and then to get out of that you just click with your left mouse and then your camera is locked where it was. Bam, bam. I think if you want to, it's Shift F, G, and then you can jump with the V key on your keyboard and then just move around with WASD. Jump, you know, if you ever need to view your scene from a first person perspective. Before I call it quits, I'm going to show you just how to make a very, very basic scene so you can get the hang of exporting in Blender. Let me make myself a cube. Oop, that's a circle. Cube. Okay, underneath it, I'm going to make a plane. So just click down here with your left click and it'll put your cursor there. That's where the origin of stuff is from its creation. So wherever I clicked is the middle of this plane. Use S to scale it. Click this blue arrow and drag it down to move it down. Make the cube a little bit smaller. Drag the cube down. I'm actually going to bring the plane back up a bit. Oh, if you ever want to see things in vertex mode, you hit Z to do that. So there you go. That'll switch your option down here. You have a lot of stuff to deal with. Usually you work with solid wireframe or material when you're in the editing phase. Bam. So I'm in Cycles Render, so I'm going to grab myself a plane. Use R, Y, 90 to rotate it on the y-axis 90 degrees. Use G, left click to move it. You can use that anywhere. Your cursor can be over here and you can hit G and you're still moving it. So there you have it. I'm going to take this cube in the center, make sure I have my properties window open, go over to this one. It looks like a kind of pink circle, and this is your texturing tab. Make a new texture, make sure you're in cycles, and then it'll automatically apply it. Make it be diffuse on the surface setting, and then use the color to pick some red. There you go. Now make the ground will just stay the same. Don't add a texture to the ground. Go to this square up here and new texture. Change the diffuse to emission. White is a good color for the light. Let's put the strength at 3 and then make a new camera and use Control Alt 0 to put the camera right in front. Change the focal length of the camera to about here, and then make sure the camera is selected and move it. Just move it. And if I want to move it forward, I'll look at what axis I'm on. That's the Y axis. So G, Y, and then it'll push it forward. I said what axis I'm on, I meant like what axis would move me forward. So if I did X, it would have moved me left and right, which I didn't want, so I used Y. Now, if you hit Shift Z, just Shift Z, it's going to switch to the rendered mode, which you can change right there. Bam. Now you're rendering. It's that easy. You are doing a shot. And you can still change stuff from out here, you just won't get your outlines. So if I right click the cube and I hit G, I can move it around and it'll try and update it as fast as possible, as fast as your graphics card can update it for you. Yeah, and you can move the camera around out here. So I got a light, I got a box, I got the ground. Say I wanted to have this background area not be gray, you can change that no matter what is selected, always in your world tab. It's right here. You click the color, make it like darker or lighter, and the color it is will light your environment. So if you change it to green, your ground is going to turn green. So keep it grayscale if you don't want any tinting to go on. I'm actually going to get rid of it. To make it transparent in your final export, you go to the render tab, the camera, or it's the scene tab, sorry, and then you scroll down. You can middle mouse click and drag to scroll as well. Try and find film right here. There's a transparent option for the film tab. If it's closed, just open it. Click, and now you got an alpha background. Done. So I'm going to hit 0 on the number pad to go to the camera view. Oh, if you only have one camera and you hit 0, it'll just go to the only camera that there is. Now, I'm here. I'm in the rendered view. But I want to have it as like an image that I can save and have the alpha background part of the image. So go back to your solid view and you're going to render. These are your render settings right here in the scene tab. I'm going to put it to 1920 1080 by changing the scale to 100% and keeping the resolution 1920 1080. And then the samples were looking a little bit bad. Sampling in Blender is just the quality, so it's how many times it's going to render these like shadows right here. See how it's kind of grainy? It's because the sample count is kind of low on this. My samples right now are only at 10 for the render and the preview. So say I wanted to really amp this up, make it high quality, you go in, you change this to like 100, and then it'll tell you how many samples it's finished. It just did 100, and it kind of smoothed itself out. If you crank that up like to 3000, it'll just keep going, you know, until it does its best job, and it'll just keep getting smoother. But for a render, you probably only need like at max 200 for a simple scene like this. Okay, so the button to render is F12, just like that. It's going to go through little section by section. You can change the size of the sections that it does right in the performance tab. That's going to be right here, the tiles. 256 works good if you're working on like a Windows 7 64-bit workflow. If you ever want to cancel a render, like, stop, it's doing too much of this, hit escape, it'll instantly cancel it. You can redo it with F12 again. It'll go through, do your stuff, and then it'll be done. And if you like the export, if you feel like it did a good job, you can go down here to the image section and save as image, or just hit F3, and then it'll give you your basic Windows stuff where you can save the PNG. Done. Whew. If you don't want it to be a PNG, you can go in the scene tab and change this to whatever you want. Blender. That's it. Maybe I'll make more. Did you learn anything? Who knows? Bepler.